Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Kids Independent Media Production Product Feature Day. We're talking about the INDe WaFarer kits today. A few months ago, we got to do a super fun snare spotlight on a drum from this company, INDe Drum Lab. They are amazing drums. They are incredibly affordable, especially considering what they can do, and they have a wide variety of options. Today, we're talking about these particular kits. It's called the WaFarer series. They have some special appointments about them, some special options, and unbelievably versatile sound. We have two kits today, not just one. They were kind enough to furnish us with both an aluminum kit and also a maple kit that's going to be featured a little bit later. We're going to start with the aluminum today. Now, what we're looking at here is a 4-piece kit. We have a 6-inch deep 12-inch tom, we have a 10-inch deep 15, and we have a 10 by 20 bass drum along with a 6.5 by 14-inch snare. The snare is not included with the kit when you order it, but this is from the Kalamazoo series, which is basically similar to the one that we showed a few months ago. We had a brass one here. Now, the idea behind this series is to basically give you a kit that does everything that full-size drums and full-weight drums will do for you in a super portable package that is still not getting too far into the idea of like a compact kit. We're still dealing with a 12, a 15, and a 20, but everything about it is about getting the weight down, about making it super portable, and also about making it really wide in terms of the tuning range. Super high, super low, everything in between. Let's jump right into the sounds now. We're going to go with a medium tuning, which is right around in the ballpark of how they were tuned when they showed up. Beautiful sounds all around. The drums came equipped with Aquarian heads all around, which is also something that we don't normally have in the shop here. That's been super fun to experiment with. Coated top and bottom on the toms, coated on the snare, nice kind of pre-muffled heads on the bass drum. Just fat everywhere, no muffling on anything. There's nothing in that bass drum. Just totally great, usable, functional, loud sounds out of these drums. But with the additional kind of warmth and darkness that you hope for and usually get out of aluminum drums. Now, the first thing I noticed when we took these out of the boxes, well, initially the boxes themselves were enormous, obviously, and they were so light. We pulled them all out, looked at everything, and the first thing that you notice is the rack tom is super shallow. Normal range for a 12 is, 8 at the shallowest, and then, down to maybe square or even deeper. I have had experience with shallow rack toms where they had a bit of a thin or a timbali-esque kind of aspect and not a lot of range, especially in terms of low-end projection. Not a problem here. This is a situation where I immediately had to not listen with my eyes and actually hear what it was doing. The floor tom being 10 inches by 15, that's not so crazy. It's a little bit shallow relative to maybe a 15 or a 14-inch floor tom, but it's worth mentioning that you shouldn't be dissuaded by how shallow that rack stack tom is if you have experience with like short stack toms and things like that. Likewise with the bass drum, I've heard things like this called a pancake bass drum sometimes, or different things like that. There's a couple of venues in the city here that actually have alarmingly shallow bass drums, but I actually like a shallow bass drum. I really love a 20 by 14. I love a 24 by 14. 20 by 10 is becoming a new favorite for me. I'm actually thinking of getting just one of these bass drums for myself because it does the quickness of an 18, it does the pitch of a 20, and especially with the aluminum, the range can get much, much lower than you would think. And dovetailing right into that, because we've heard a lot of metal drums on the internet tuned super low and they do beautiful things at these super low tunings, we're going to see how low we can go. So if I just heard that audio, I definitely wouldn't assume that it was ostensibly, small sized drums, certainly not shallow drums. Super boomy, there's no processing going on here. This is just the acoustic sound of the mics as per usual here. Even the snare drum, it's doing that wonderful aluminum thing of really swerving beautifully into the low end. Still controllable, overtones aren't crazy, super duper punchy, very, very loud, very, very loud. But also, again, very controllable, easy to play, and they all feel amazing. And for the record, these are basically finger tight right now. They're just just a hair above finger tight. It was as low as we could possibly go. And there's a little bit of rasp in there, a little bit of kind of jangly stuff, which I like a lot. And those are also the sorts of things that actually make the drums project in a track when they are tuned this low. You need a little bit of extra kind of junk in there. It's almost like a little bit of overdrive on a guitar or something, especially with snares too, can just really get it to cut through. A quick word about the edges and the shells on these. These are rolled and riveted, and they have straight edges on them. They're not folded over like a Ludwig, like a Superphonic or that kind of edge. They just go straight into the edge. They are sanded and they're soft. They're not sharp edges, but they don't have any kind of folded over bearing edge. And what that means for us is that where aluminum is kind of a dark sounding metal and kind of dry, this accentuates a little more attack and brings it a little bit closer to steel or brass, which is really, really great for toms in particular, because when you're tuning super low, you do want to make sure that you still have clear stick impact and a clear separation between the attack and the tone right afterward, rather than like a boingy kind of sound. And finally, all of the hardware on here is proprietary. These are, custom lugs, custom claws, the legs, everything comes from INDe, designed by them, all folds into this kind of complete aesthetic where it looks modern, it looks sophisticated. It's also got a little bit of a deco thing going on, which I like a lot. And it's all in furtherance of tone and warmth and portability. For those of us that want a wood drum, but with the same kind of setup, basically, we're talking same sizes, same hardware, same overall behavior, but now we're doing 5-ply maple shells with a really unique bearing edge. For me, I love a mid-range and a maple. Lows can be great with maple too. We're going to experiment with going the other direction with the maple for the tuning. So we're going to start out again with essentially the medium tuning that they arrived at the shop with. Beautiful sounding maple drums. I mean, what more can you say? Coated heads again, top and bottom, the same sort of appointments as the other kit. They just sound great right away. I didn't really do anything to them at all. But now, thinking about the idea that we have a 12, we have a 15, we have a shallow 20, we're going to go up into bop range, kind of tune them like pretty high, and experiment with that a little bit, the snare included. Beautiful tone, clarity, nice projection, still plenty loud, doing everything. Even the snare, I mean, I really tuned the snare super high. It sounds great. Now, when you're dealing with thin maple shells, sometimes things can get a little bit bright, sometimes they can get a little bit boomy. Overtones can be overwhelming sometimes. My thin maple shell drums at home have die-cast hoops on them to kind of even that out. What they've chosen to do is a really interesting bearing edge, which is rather than an inner cut, which we see on a lot of modern kits, or a total fold over, which is sort of like a vintage vibe, like a baseball bat, these are actually straight up on the inside with a little soft curve, and then they are rolled over just on the outside, basically to follow the collar of the head. So you're getting a ton of contact with the collar on the head and a lot of interaction between the head and the shell. This means tons of resonance, not too much pingy, crispy attack on top, but a lot of tone and a really wide tuning range without the need for much in the way of muffling unless you're really trying to deaden them up. These edges work amazingly and slightly differently on all of the drums because, you know, we tune bass drums and snares differently than we tune toms and everything. But I'm finding, particularly with these drums, that this gives them the sound of being bigger than they are, but also able to tune in such a way that they sound like a small bop kit. If you jump over to INDe's Instagram, you'll see that they actually stack up a maple kit the bass drum, the floor tom, the rack tom, and they include the floor tom legs on a scale. The entire thing, 23 pounds, which is a little bit lighter than the last bell brass snare that I picked up. I couldn't believe how light they were. And a lot of times when you play very lightweight drums, you're dealing with a situation where they've been designed to be light in such a way that you're sacrificing something in terms of the sound and the tone and the projection in particular, because you do need enough like rigidity in the wood to throw the sound to the audience. These are the lightest drums for these sizes that I've ever seen, and they don't do any of the things that I associate problematically with kits that are all about being lightweight. After we had gone through these kits and played them a bunch, I was particularly shocked by the weight, but then I was even more shocked also by the price point of these, because we're talking about a professional, ostensibly custom kit. I mean, these are made to order, where you're looking at getting the maple rack, floor, and kick for $9.99 and aluminum rack, floor, and kick for $11.99. They have a lot of options with snare drums, and you can add that on if you want to. A lot of us already have snare drums that we like, so you may not necessarily want to include that. And incidentally, these very kits are for sale and orderable through their site. As soon as we're done with them, we're sending them back. So if you like these, you can actually ask for these drums that we had here today. Now, just for fun, here's a comparison of the mid-range tunings of the two kits, so you can get an idea of more of like the difference in the shell sound. We didn't go for tuning them exactly the same. It was just basically how they showed up. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a difference in the sounds. Obviously, they look different as well. And depending on what you want to do with them, metal drums low have a really special quality. Maple drums high have a really special quality. But either of them is going to do the whole range. All right, that about wraps it up. Thanks so much to everyone at INDe Drum Lab for furnishing us with these drums for a few days to show to you guys, go through all the different things that they can do. I love the weight. I love the price point. The sound is incredible, super versatile. If you're interested in these, follow the link below for everything that they do, snares, these exact kits, in fact. And also check out their hardware options. We've talked about retrofitting kits with things that they've made before. It's all fantastic, super versatile. And this is also about, getting the best instrument into your hands from small business too, supporting people that are really making things that they really love and have put their heart and soul into it.